Imagine if that head trash was not there. Who would you be? What if I told you those fears were no longer a problem? What would you do? I'm Stephanie Costello, a mom of three, wife, and avid mountaineer. Beyond all of these, I am very much like you, an average person trying to navigate this thing we call life. My goal with this podcast is to bring to light the truth about what intimacy really is. You may smile, feel called out, or learn something new. Either way, you will learn you are in control. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing to you Chef Lauren D'Agostino, who helps veg-curious and plant-passionate people fall in love with plant-based food and living. Offering in-home catering services for intimate groups and wellness retreats, she infuses fun, familiarity, and high vibrations of love, joy, and gratitude, and often essential oils, into her gourmet menus. When she's not in her kitchen cooking, she's in the virtual kitchen teaching self-conscious and intimidated cooks the plant-based fundamentals so they can master the intuitive bliss of healthy and flavorful meals in the day-to-day. A free-spirited and curious adventure seeker, astrologer lover, intuitive yogi, high-vibe community builder, and happiness junkie, Lauren takes a holistic and fun-loving approach to plant-based living both on and off the planet. All right. Hi, Lauren, and welcome to the Intimacy Truth Podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. I'm very excited to actually be talking with you about all of your wonderful things that you're doing with our world and how you became a chef. So let's get started. Tell me, how did you become a chef in your as becoming an entrepreneur?
Yeah, that's such a good question. It was almost by accident. I actually got started right out of college in retail, worked in retail management for a couple of years, and just wasn't what I was supposed to be doing. I felt that numbness inside. It was eating away at my soul. And so I switched from there into something that I knew I always loved, and that was baking. So I went to pastry school. Actually, people are surprised sometimes to learn that I have not always been in this plant-based vegan world. I used to love dairy. I used to love sugar. So that was where the journey began on the chef side of things for me. I'd always loved to cook, even from a very early age, always had access to the real stove in a safe way, of course. And so always was welcomed in the kitchen, and I loved to share that with others. And so I started the process of learning more about what avenue I wanted to take within food service or under the umbrella of being a chef. But it wasn't until I tried on all of the things that just didn't feel like me that I finally landed on the thing that does, and that is doing this private chef thing in kind of my own way, bringing the restaurant to people. I never really liked the idea of working long nights and weekends and 60-hour weeks minimum as a chef in the traditional way. And I also realized that I couldn't keep working in the pastry world. I left my career as an aspiring pastry chef, something that could have been a very promising one for me, but I felt so guilty about all the sugar I was using and all of those things that I was sharing with people. Like I've always been pretty interested in health and wellness just personally. And so the more I learned about what was the optimal fuel for me, the more guilt I felt about giving people something I knew was slowly poisoning them. And that might sound kind of extreme, like, oh, what's a cookie or a cake here and there? But when you were seeing them as frequently as I was,
Yeah.
it just kind of came back to that feeling of inauthenticity. And so I switched my own personal diet from what was cake scraps and soggy French fries to two top products of the jobs in food service and hospitality I had at the time. And I transitioned into a more plant strong and vibrant life. And it's over time of doing that and bringing those foods into my body that's truly contributed to the change and the up leveling of this baseline that I live at now, where I feel physically, mentally, energetically, emotionally, and spiritually just at a higher level, a higher vibration. There's really no better way to say that. And it's
so
all because
true.
of the food I eat. Yeah.
It's very true. We, as a family, and it's interesting, we've been doing it for, I think, 6 or so months, probably more than that now, since we bought our new home in August of last year. And whenever family comes, it's like, oh, Costello kids can't eat whatever sugar food. And, we just had Easter, and obviously that's a very high sugar, really holidays, like the treats that we get.
And so my kids have been horrible for the last 2 days because of the amount of sugar that is currently in our house and that they had the day of. Although our kiddos are getting older, so they're understanding, we switch it from a not a I can't have, but our bodies don't like the
Yes,
food,
I love
right?
that.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
same thing. So like we'll do ice cream in the morning. And so they'll go to school like, we had ice cream this morning. It's like protein powder and plant-based protein powder, and not vegetables, frozen fruits. And I really love Ripple, the
Yep.
milk that's made out of pea protein. Like I have no problem chugging down a glass of milk now, knowing that I'm drinking like 8 grams or so of protein and no sugar. It's pure goodness, and that brings us to like our total excitement for today of living your authentic life, and how the things that you put in your body that are not authentic to your body create this lack of authenticity in who you are as a person. And my kiddo, even my oldest, she'll say, Mommy, my body's not happy right now because of how much sugar I ate. Yeah. And it's so cute. And it's like, yeah, you're right, kid. You need to go take some space. Right. And obviously that how I'm laughing and talking, that's not always how the conversation goes. Sometimes it's get out of my face. Right. But there's different levels of authenticity that can shine through. The point still is, though, at the core of our authenticity, there's that level of if we don't do the basics of what our body needs, then there's not much living our authentic life, or there's living out of alignment often.
Yeah, totally. And when I love that you make that comment about the sugar with your kids, you can definitely notice. I don't have kids of my own, but I hear so many stories from people where they'll take their kids off sugar and then they'll test it out. They'll give them sugar and they're like, oh my gosh, my kid they're totally different people. And because their bodies are still so small and developing, like you get two different experiences based on what you feed your kids or what choices you encourage them to make. So really cool that you're empowering them at that early age. I love that.
Thank you. And how about yourself, when you went from like the pastry world to the healthier world? How was that transition for you physically?
Yeah. So I noticed a lot of things, and I should say too, when I was going through the transition, I was so realistic with how it would look, how it would taste, what things I was buying, and with the amount of time that I had to actually transition these habits so they could be part of a lifestyle and not part of a diet that I was putting myself on. I knew I wanted to go plant-based and stay there. So I set myself up for success in that way. It's similar when you move your whole house, like that takes some planning, right? You don't just like pack your luggage and just go and hope it works out. It takes some time to put all the pieces together. And so, I was really connected to the actual cooking process, really learned about the different things that I was going to be using on a more regular basis, like learned how to do all sorts of cool things with chickpeas and different kinds of beans and legumes and nuts. But I also just really appreciate now the flavor of plain fruits or vegetables, even like medjool dates. If ever I need something sweet, like I have one date now, and then I'm good. Like all day, my sugar craving is nailed. And I'm someone who used to eat a bowl of ice cream after school every
day.
day.
Oh, I did the same thing, sometimes twice a day. Like my favorite thing to do is find those little hole in the wall ice cream shops all around the estate and like go and support them. Like huge ice creams, like, and I have one right down the street from my house that when we first moved in, or before we moved in, we went and stopped there for a treat. And now it's like, we're dairy and gluten free. We're not meat free, but we're dairy, gluten. We're actually peanut free, and whole wheat free, like all that stuff, refined sugar, high fructose corn syrup, all of it. So not to be able to do that is like, it was the hardest thing to let go of, because it was just a passion of mine to support those ice cream stores. So
Yeah. It's really interesting to notice over time how your body responds to those foods that you remove for a period of time and then you introduce them back in, and they throw you so off balance, or they don't taste as good as you thought they once did. Like I still experience that one. I'm totally with you. I love to make all natural ice cream from frozen bananas and whatever else gets added in there. And even like vegan or fully plant-based ice cream, like it just doesn't hit all those chords for me really anymore, because my body loves and responds so well to food that's actually meant to fuel my body, just in that similar way that gasoline is meant to fuel a car.
Right.
Real whole plant-based food is meant to fuel a human machine. And for some families and some people, animal protein is totally cool to still include. I do believe that in bio-individuality. But even for those folks, you might be surprised if you kind of can lighten the portion or sprinkle it in throughout your week a few days, less frequently. You might be surprised at some different ways that you feel, or that it kind of sticks with you for a couple of days and you don't need it maybe as regularly as you believed. So really like empowering yourself and letting your body communicate with you as far as what fuel is best for your unique car can make all the difference. Like I'm vegan for right now because I love it and it makes me feel awesome, but I don't know if that's going to be true for the rest of the phases of my life. I would hope so, but I'm totally open to letting my body be the driver.
Exactly. Living your authentic life. I love it. And I want to actually bridge this too for people, because this, even though we're talking to a vegan chef or someone who loves food, right? We're not just talking to those foodies here. Like this, you can take what we're talking about and apply it to your life. Just like you can take your food and let your body tell your body what your food wants, or vice versa. Like this, if you're passionate about anything in your life and you're struggling with living your authentic life, we're here to say, like, this is not an easy journey. It is so important to get uncomfortable or learn how to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. I was actually just recently having a conversation with a friend, and in that conversation, it's like I'm pounding growth, right? And I'm like, this is my jam. I love this. And they're like, no. And I'm like, I'm sorry that growth is uncomfortable for you. Like, time to get uncomfortable, because actually I'm really not sorry. I take that back. Those words are like curses. I don't use those words.
I know.
I'm not sorry. I do feel for you. I feel the struggle. I feel the challenge. I know it's uncomfortable. So please tell me how your journey for that part of living your authentic life. Like, how did you, because family is not supportive at all. When we make huge transitions like this, family just wants to pound you home and how you're ruining your kids, like, or for me at least. So tell me yours.
Yeah. So it was easier for me at the time than it might be for others listening. So I'll just share what my personal experience was like, and then kind of some tips I've picked up along the way from knowing other people. So I was living in Florida at the time, actually working for Whole Foods Market and some different restaurants and things. And so I was surrounded by tons of good food, but also people who were passionately living a vegan lifestyle. And I noticed them, I noticed and appreciated their energy, and whatever they were doing, I had to learn all of it. So I just kind of became a student of change. And you're right, growth takes some level of being uncomfortable, but we're always going through that. And when you choose to just see life in all aspects of it as an opportunity to learn and grow and repeat that cycle, you take back like a bit more of that control, but in a more kind of reciprocal way. So you kind of get to dance with the universe and dance with opportunity in a way that feels better. Like, who knows what might come up today, but I'm excited about what it might teach me, right? Or who knows who I might meet today, and I'm excited to make their day. Like, whatever it is, there's going to be some level of uncomfortability, but when you just accept that as the truth, it doesn't have so much weight. It doesn't throw you off of balance so much. So that's that. And then on my personal transition, I was going through it gradually, and I didn't really need to announce it to everyone I met. So like, that's something a lot of people want to do, especially when their transition is fueled by this like virtuous endeavor and new outlook on life, because they've seen a documentary or they've read a study or a book or something, and they want to tell everyone that they are going vegan or plant-based, or that they should try too, because the individual person who's going through change is so connected to their why. Your family is not going to give a crap about your why, because they're more concerned about their own why.
Right.
So all you kind of have to do is put up this like invisible shield of, I'm doing this thing, I'm trying this out, this is what works for me. And when you just kind of like keep all those little secrets to yourself, and it gets a little more challenging with kids, I think, because you have family members and parents who like want to bring over all the candy when they come see the kids.
That, but also like,
ice cream.
mommy, that lunch is like, what do they eat so unhealthy? It's like, shh, don't say that. Like, don't judge their parenting. They're gonna think that I'm judging them. It's so uncomfortable.
Totally. And so, that's kind of where like it's helpful. I would imagine, to have kind of those conversations with your kids, but similarly, like from the parental, I'm like this light from the parental perspective, like just because kids will say whatever's on their mind, right? That's the beauty of being a child, is you have no filter yet. And so kind of learning maybe to like laugh about what it is. Like, kids say the darndest things. I mean, right? Like, they made comedy shows about that. And so even just having yourself as a parent, like a lighthearted approach to what they say and how observant they are, because they are really living in their authenticity. They're absorbing so much of the world around them. Mm-hmm. And so to kind of correct them into saying some things differently, I don't know, could kind of knock them off of their authentic path. I think it's so beautiful. Kids are so magical in that phase of life. And so just kind of rolling with, we eat more plants, we eat this way, and it makes us feel awesome. And having that maybe be the way that they start to talk about their choices in the outside world, outside the home. Yeah.
We talk about eating from the rainbow. So when we eat, like, what's in the fridge that we can eat from the rainbow? And my daughter goes to kindergarten and comes home and goes, Mommy, your favorite food is Skittles. I'm like, nope, no, it's not. That wasn't the purpose. This isn't working as planned. Like, society, you're making things so much harder for me. But still, the sentiment applies. Like, eating from the rainbow. All the foods that we should be eating are from the rainbow colors. My kiddo, and same thing. Like, well, I'll crack a cucumber in half and hand it to them, and then people are like, that's weird. It's like, no, that's really cool, right? Like, I've worked really hard for them to just eat this cucumber the way I'm handing it to them. So let's not diminish how they're doing it or what we're choosing. And in the same token, trying to give them the skills and the empowerment to just accept things for way things are. Like, it's not that cow's milk is bad, right? We're not like, what you're doing is bad. And oftentimes when we get passionate about a change that we want to tell the other person, like, that's bad for you. And we all are guilty of it. That's just our natural human behavior. So it's not something to be ashamed of, right? Like, we're focusing on living our authentic life. And if that's part of our authenticity for the moment, then that's okay. And acceptance is really important. It's just then like, okay, I didn't really like how that felt. So how am I going to move forward? And it's not that, it's back to my main point. It's not that we can't drink, or our bodies don't like cow's milk, right? Like, we focus on what it's doing for us, not what other people are doing in their decision-making process, at least in our family, and how we try to get them to communicate things. And actually yesterday, her teacher comes home, she comes home and says, my teacher said no candy at school. I'm like, yes.
Nice.
Like,
amazing.
Good for, I don't know why she said it. There must have been some conflict because Matt was putting some of it in her, my husband, in her lunchbox. And so now we're living our lives, thankfully, in alignment with how we're really wanting to live it. And to bring this really close, like, together, a lot of the work that I do is helping people find safety in freedom that they create by their design, living their life by design, right? And not by somebody else's design. Unfortunately, since kindergarten, we're taught how to listen to somebody else's rules, do what everybody else wants us to do, learn what other people want us to learn, and work a 9-to-5 job. And then we get to college and we're like, wait, now we don't have to work this 9-to-5 job anymore. Like, how do we do this? And then becoming an entrepreneur, like this, there's just this evolution in breaking free from the societal patterns that we're taught, and embracing that at a very young age is super empowering and gives them that empowerment that is robbed of so many people so early. So
yeah, that message totally resonates. I think that was really the core essence of what it was that I was craving, was that freedom. I always suspected at an early age that I would do something on my own or kind of pursue that entrepreneurial route. I didn't know though what it would be or what it would look like. And so now you're right at, like, I am committed to this pursuit of growth, of kind of carving out my own little corner of the world, and living in my light, and sharing that with others, passing that on to others so they can live in their light too, whatever that looks like. But really the core of that begins with fueling your body, which then fuels your mind with food that's actually food. And I love too that you mentioned, there is no can or can't eat. I believe that very same thing. It's, I can eat anything I want. I choose not to eat those things that I know make me feel lousy or that don't line up with what I truly believe, all of that stuff. So
yes, it's such a learning lesson when we go after we made the shift. You go to the grocery store and you realize you can't eat 90% of the you don't want to eat 90% of the store. Like, I skip all of the breads aisles now and all the cooking. I mean, darn Oreos, gluten-free. It's so hard. It's like another weakness of mine, and they're already dairy free. They don't say they're dairy free, but there's no dairy in them. So yeah, it's like such an eye-opening experience. And you're right, your taste buds change. Like, for giggles, I tried some Halloween candy, and that's another thing. Like, now how do we go trick-or-treating? Like, oh, you can go trick-or-treating and collect all this candy, but now we're throwing it away and you can't have any of it. Like, it's such a hard thing to be. And my husband's like, we're not going to be that family that gives out apples. I'm like, I don't know what to do. But I tried a piece of Hershey's and it was disgusting. It was like, it's like not even chocolate. It's maybe like 1%. A Hershey Kiss is like probably 1%, if that, like, of chocolate. I'm just being obnoxious here. I don't really know how much chocolate is in it. So Hershey's, don't come after me, please. But it's like, it was disgusting. And I love chocolate. So it's not easy, but it's fun.
Yeah. And even I love that you bring that up as an example. Like, even within a food category that you think is right, either healthy or unhealthy, there's a good, better, best scale. So, some chocolates fall towards the not so good, really. And then the more that you pursue a product or an ingredient that is made with less sugar, that is more homemade, that is made in smaller batches, like, you kind of can move along the scale, really. And I still eat chocolate, but it's fancy chocolate, but it's because I only need a little teeny bit and it satisfies that craving and it doesn't make me feel terrible.
Yeah, it's really cool too when you do just have that one bite, and it's like a delicatessen, I guess, is that the right word you would call it? Like, that one bite just is so, as I would relate it to getting to the top of the mountain. Like, I didn't have to go through all this trash just to have that one bite or just to see that one view, right? Like, I got to just take a bite and enjoy it to the fullest extent. And it really is very satisfying once your body gets accustomed to the new way you're feeding it. So
yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you for being here on our Intimacy Truth podcast. I hope this was helpful for our listeners. I know it will be, especially the more we talk about living our authentic lives and what that means for us, the more we get to be free in our safety of what we create and the design that we create. So I much appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Oh, before we go, do you want to share where people can get you and get in touch with you, and also about your cookbook?
Sure. Yeah. So people can find more information about what I'm up to at laurendagostino.com, or join me on social media, Instagram mostly for now, at Chef Lauren D'Agostino. And then there's a link on my website and in my Instagram profile for the cookbook, or you can just search my name on Amazon.
Very cool. And your cookbook is able to be interchangeable?
Yeah, so the cookbook itself is, it's not a very sexy title, but it's very straightforward, just like me. It's plant-based, vegan, and gluten-free cooking with essential oils. So they're recipes that are easy, flavorful, and really nutrient dense. And so from there you can cook with or without essential oils, most of these recipes anyway. And then even from there, you can decide if you want to keep it fully vegan and fully gluten-free, or you want to kind of swap it out and use the recipes more as guidance for how you might be inspired to either eat more plants or try cooking with pure essential oils.
I love it. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, of course.